Okay, we'd like to start with asking the public how many of you guys out there have been discriminated. I have. So that was one of the reasons why I decided to join the National Labor Relations Board. I became a board agent. I have over 12 years of federal experience behind me with many awards and all the other fun stuff. I think the most important thing that I could share with anybody that I was surprised of and stuff like that is how the investigation works and stuff like that. So normally, once you have an unfair labor or practice dispute and you get in contact with the National Labor Relations Board or any other administrative agencies, the first thing they're going to want to take from you is going to be your affidavit. So normally when you give your affidavit and stuff like that, that is your chance as a charging party to submit your evidence. So within the affidavits, they're going to ask you a lot of questions besides the question of what happened, on or about what time it happened, and what was the conversation. They're going to ask you who initiated the conversation, who responded, and so forth and so forth. I would usually recommend people whenever giving an affidavit to the public, because I see this going to hearing, is whenever you have a conversation, tell the board agent that at the end of your conversation, this is all I recall from this conversation. And just try to give as much history as possible to show your credibility. Things that I've mentioned that help with credibility, even though we're not administrative law judges, and I like being a neutral party, is go to the board agent, let them know on or about the day of when you got hired. I would let them know, let the board agent know whether you're still employed or not, because if you got discharged because they're engaged in a specific constructive activity, they might want to ask you for your hourly wages when you was working, maybe scheduled for Monday to Friday, so they can figure some kind of back pay calculation for that. We will also ask questions if the employer post notices, you know what I'm saying, to let the public know what's going on, what their rights were active, the post notices for the employment the Equal Employment Commission agency of the EEOC. So a lot of that stuff is very important. I can't stress it enough. So I always try to tell people try to keep as much documentary evidence as possible. I would tell people if you have any text messages, keep text messages. For anybody in the public who doesn't know, we live in a one-party consent state, whatever. I always tell people if they have any recordings, which is good, keep them. I normally don't like getting recordings. I know that a lot of you guys have gone to any of the municipal courts over here. Usually when you go in front of an administrative law judge, they don't want you to have hand them an actual recording, because the judge has to take a minute to listen to the actual recording. So what I would normally ask the board agent is, if you do have a recording, can you make a transcript of it, saying word for word, especially if you were the person who was sitting there, something like that, of what happened. So, and normally, if you know anybody who corroborate your story, anybody who you had a conversation with, I always tell people it's good to know if you know of unfair labor practice, try to know all your employees who work around you, like usually first name basis, last name basis, title. Knowing the supervisory hierarchy is always important. I will always ask who's your immediate supervisor, who's their supervisor, and so forth and so forth. It's also good to know whenever we post notices of the employees get done with something that I would normally ask how many of the employees over there speak another language besides English, and what population of the employees at the employer's location speak that language. I will also ask if there's anybody who can read or who can't read or write English. That's always important to know, so we can try to accommodate them somehow, some way, so they can understand if their rights are being exploited. That's about it. I would always try to tell people have that ready. It just makes our life a little bit easier if you know what's going on. I always tell people if you were in a union, if you had invoked your Wayne Garden rights, is almost like calling for an attorney. Whenever you have a fear that you're going to get disciplined, you can always tell the employer representative that if you do like to have a union representative present, and if they usually continue asking you questions, that will be a violation of the National Labor Relations Board, or the Act as we call it. So I just try to keep the public as informed as possible as doing this outreach. Because I think the more you know, and I always tell people in all the cases that I have, the better it is. Because if we don't find merit to your case immediately, I know we will find merit to a case in the future. And you being an individual charged party, something like that, if you work for another employer and he goes ahead and exploits your rights under the Act, you'll be a little bit sad. You'll be like, no, I think I'm entitled to talk to other workers about wages and work conditions, and you can't threaten any reprisal or promulgate any rules against me for engaging in protected concerted activity. So I would say the more you know, the better, and that's all I would like to share with the public.